And with two down, here is Ed Hearn, who had his first big league hit in the second inning. He's a youngster who was drafted by Philadelphia. He had an appointment to the West Point Military Academy and decided to be a baseball player. He would have made an impressive-looking general. He's 6'3", 215.
It's way back. It is going, gone, goodbye. And Ed Hearn with his first major
And a high drive to left. Back goes Stubbs, way back.
I made it to the penthouse of all my dreams as a young boy. I mean, I had sacrificed so much to be there, to get to that point. No doubt. I probably never really dreamt that I would play in the big leagues, let alone be in a World Series and be on the winning team.
He struck him out. The Mets have won the World Series. The dream has come true. The Mets have won the World Series, coming from behind to win the 7th ball game.
There's a couple of gifts I want to give to you, and one of them is a little perspective today. Just when I had life in the palm of my hand, I mean, I had it right where I wanted it. It was jerked out from underneath me.
But this is a man who, first of all, was the short end of the David Cone trade. The Royals gave away a 2-time Cy Young Award winner, and Ed took the heat for it because he got injured right away. On top of that, when his career ended, he had a kidney transplant, a life-threatening blood disorder, and a life-threatening sleeping disorder disease. And when we interviewed him a month before, or 2 months before, he had had cancer.
So I went from the penthouse to the outhouse. What do you do when you're facing adversity, when you're facing change, you think you have no control over it? I was feeling sorry for myself because life had thrown me a curve. This was potentially a strikeout curve. I was having the mother of all pity parties. Life throws you curves, you got to keep swinging. You got to keep swinging because you can't hit a home run sitting on the bench, or worse yet, sitting in stands.
I had dreamed of being a big league ball player. That's all I wanted to do, and then things changed. Of course, as I travel around the country speaking today, I find that we all face changes in life. We face challenges, and fortunately, the things that happened in my life, I now am able to go out there and empower other people, share with them a message of hope and that we can overcome these challenges.
Today, guys, we're talking with Ed Hearn. Anybody who knows me knows I'm a big Mets fan. Ed was a contributing member of the 1986 World Championships Mets team. He was a catcher. He was drafted by our Phillies. I live very close to the Phillies AAA team. He spent 4 years in the Phillies minor league system playing with the likes of Ryne Sandberg, and I'm sure a lot of other great players. You also won a bunch of minor league championships, and you've become a sought-after motivational speaker. So welcome.
Thanks, Ryan. It's great to be with you. I didn't realize you were quite so close to Philly land there.
Oh, absolutely. No, we are so close. We're about 10 minutes from the AAA Phillies team, the Iron Pigs. So we see a lot of the players come and go. It's awesome to be so close.
It was a fabulous organization back in 1978 when I was drafted out of high school, 4th round with them. And you mentioned Ryne Sandberg. A couple great things about Rhino. We were roommates on the road, and we shared co-MVPs at the end of that rookie season.
Awesome. Ed, what is it like playing in the minor? I'm jumping ahead, but what is it like playing in the minor leagues? Is it grueling? Is it a long season with all the travel?
Well, I was 17, young high school senior. And, it's certainly different like any other 17-year-old going to college or something. But, you mix in the travel. And truly, I really felt like it was some of the best years of my life.
Uh-huh.
But also on the other side of that, there were some times when I wanted to quit. So it was grueling. It was both sides of the fence. I experienced tremendous times. That first year at Helena, Montana was fabulous. It was the first time they had a pro team affiliation in Helena, Montana, in God's country with the mountains, and it was beautiful, and the people thought we were gods. And I had a great 3 months there, and of course MVP with Rhino, and so he just had some great years. Then when I went with the Mets, started in '83 there, and '83, '84, '85, we won. I was on the team that won the Single A championship in Lynchburg, Double A in Reading, Triple A in Tidewater, and the following year in the big leagues in 1986. That run is one that a lot of Sabre people have researched, and they don't find anybody else that's happened to do that same thing with one club in 4 consecutive years at each level of professional baseball.
And you were around when the Mets started making that transition from the late 70s for me, and early 80s were pretty bad. And then you were in that group from 83 on that kind of moved up to the major leagues together. Was there anybody who stood out other than the ones we all know about?
In which way do you mean stand out? There was a wide variety with the Mets team. There was standouts in a lot of categories.
In their playing abilities.
Okay. Well, I mean, they had many number one picks because they were so lousy prior to that, and they reaped the fruits of that with Darryl Strawberry, Doc Gooden, Billy Beane was another tremendously talented guy who really never made it to the big leagues, but obviously he's done well as a general manager, and they made the movie Moneyball after him. So I was surrounded by a lot of really good baseball players, and as much of the baseball world knows, if they were following baseball in '86, we dominated the game, and we also dominated not only on the field but off the field, if you want to put it that way. Or in airplanes or motels or bars, you name it.
And I have a question coming up about that. But when you were growing up, did you know that you excelled at baseball and that this is where you were heading?
Well, truly, Ryan, I wanted to be an NFL quarterback. That was my dream. But I grew up on the east coast of Florida, and the high school that I attended was a very strong, football high school, but they were not. They didn't run an offense that was one that would help grow a pro-style quarterback. We ran right, ran left, and if it was third down, they'd passed, and that was about the extent of the offense that I could run because of the type of team we had. I'll just leave it at that.
I got you. I understand. That's kind of how it is around here. A lot of running. So you excelled at baseball, obviously, because you were drafted eventually. When did you realize that, hey, I'm good?
Oh, I think by the time I was about 10 or 11, I started really, standing out above the crowd. I think the thing that I've always said, the thing that propelled me in sports the most and helped me to understand the correlation between winning and success and work ethic was a competition called punt, pass, and kick back in the day. And my dad exposed me to that competition, I think, when I was 7 years old, because if I remember right, it was 8 through 13. And he competed, obviously, in a punt, pass, and a kick total, and with accuracy. But he said, hey, what do you think of this? And I said, yeah, that's pretty cool. You want to do it? Yeah, let's do it. Well, for Dad played through high school and probably had the ability to play further, but he didn't have a dad that pushed him. So my dad learned to all he could about helping me in whatever I wanted to take on. And so punt, pass, and kick, he learned the basic skills of punting, passing, and kicking, and helped me practice. And we did practice year round. So and I tell people honestly that I was probably pushed right to the level, to that fine line, and where we have parents that are gone way overboard today. And then there's parents that are totally opposite, that are not involved in the kid's life at all. And that's another sad, totally sad side, but equally as sad, in my opinion. And but I do remember in baseball, we didn't have a catcher in B Little League. I was 7 years old and shouldn't have even been playing. But my dad brought home an army bag, green army bag full of this gear. And he dumped it on the living room floor, and he said, why don't you try this on? Because Mrs. Barker, my team coach, doesn't have a catcher. And so I strapped it all on and thought, oh, this is pretty cool. And so I caught for that team. And then when I moved into the 8 to 12-year-old, it was all in one group. So you're competing against 12-year-olds. I ended up in the outfield and center field, where I was told that my parents got tired of seeing me lay down in the outfield and draw in the sand and things of that nature. And then at 9, I got moved to short, and at 10 years old, I was competitive enough to take over the catching chores, and I never looked back. There's just nothing like that position.
Awesome. I always wanted to be a catcher, but I mean, it takes a lot of talent, and it takes a lot of guts to stay back there.
Yeah, but to me, there is absolutely no position like it. You're the quarterback on the field. So, if I couldn't be a quarterback in the NFL, I felt maybe subconsciously that was part of the reason I took the catching. I just dove into it because maybe it was sort of like being the quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So you signed with the Phillies. You signed with the Mets in the minor leagues, and you spent a total of 8 years in the minor leagues?
Yes, approximately.
Before that first day that you came up with the Mets, can you tell everybody about that first day, that first game?
Well, I came up to about 5 weeks into the season, I believe, in '86, and Barry Lyons was the backup catcher for behind Carter, and we found out later that the staff, managing, coaching staff, and front office had wanted to swap Barry and I back and forth between AAA to get us some at bats because we have a Hall of Fame catcher, Gary Carter, and he's going to be playing 6 out of 7 days. So that was the plan. But I came up in, I think it was early May, and ended up staying the whole time. I was hitting 360 or something most of the year. I ended up at my very lowest point at the end at 260 something. But just worked out. I ended up staying the whole year. And at first, I didn't play for about a week or 8 days. Finally, my first game was in Los Angeles, game of the week. Vince Scully, Joe Garagiola. It was special. It was very special. Many things happened in that game. My first 2 at-bats, I was 2 for 2, leading the league in hitting. There, the guys are talking. They said some great things about me at one point on my video speaking introduction. I have a clip of Vince Scully saying, at 6'3", 215 pounds, Ed Hearn had an appointment with West Point Military Academy. He would get an impressive-looking general. And crack, I hit that double left center. It was almost like it was all cut and pasted to make it. It was all good, perfect. So it was a great day.
And you were able to hit your first home run and actually retrieve the ball.
Yes, that was on an ensuing homestand against somebody. But it was the main thing. The important factor is that it was Father's Day, and my folks had flown up from Florida. We're in the stands, and a couple neat things about that. You mentioned getting the ball back. The grounds crew guys there, Shea, were great at retrieving balls that were special, and they retrieved the ball. I didn't know that until after the game, but I rounded home plate, and I was raised to be very humble and all, but I ended up seeing a picture where I'm pointing at my folks in the stands, heading toward the dugout. Ray Knight's in that picture, I think, and George Foster. And then the next thing that happened following that is I'm in the dugout, and in '86, the fans in New York insisted on these curtain calls, and that was just not in my makeup. And Keith Hernandez and Gary Carter literally pushed me up the 4 or 5 steps, and I just I raised my hand. I ended up with one finger up, and that became the photo cover of my book, Conquering Life's Curves. Right. That's the moment right there. Yep. I just got pushed up the stairs by Gary Carter and Keith Hernandez.
That's awesome. And you were able to give the ball to your father.
That was really special. Very, very special to be able to give that to him. And if we had more time, I'd tell you an even more special story that happened similarly between my son and I when he was about 12 years old in youth ball on a Father's Day. But anyway, we'd better move on.
So on that Mets team, you had a lot of strong personalities. Gary Carter, Keith Hernandez, you mentioned George Foster, Ray Knight. What was it like being around them? Were they supportive of you? Just coming up, you're young, you're a rookie catcher, or was it the other way?
No, it was not the other way. Most of the guys were great. I think it was my first home game after I had a good start on the road there, with, that Dodger Stadium thing. Well, my first home game was against San Francisco. I believe Ronnie Darling was pitching. I made 2 errors early, the first middle part of the game. I was 0 for 2. When I came to the bat, they announced me to the plate on the third at bat. Probably half the stadium was booing. And we lost about 17 or 18 to 5 or something. And I came in the locker room afterward the game, and my locker was surrounded by the New York media, which caught me off guard, because I'm like, well, I mean, I didn't lose the game. Yeah, I didn't have a very good game, but that's the way the media was. And in regards to how people, how they were around me, including the media, this includes the media. One of the things I remember saying was, hey, yeah, I didn't have a good game. I hope these aren't the last 2 errors I make in the big leagues. And, this isn't me, and things will get better. It's my responsibility. It's my job. And I just faced up to it. The media from that day I had great media coverage, and they respected me. And, it was shortly thereafter that I hit the home run on Father's Day. And I kind of became a little bit endeared by the Mets fans, actually.
Absolutely. How did you deal with just the everyday pressures of playing baseball? I know at that point there wasn't social media like there is today with Twitter, Facebook, and all that other stuff. But people can be rough. How did you deal with that every day?
In the game of baseball, in the game of life, if you're focused on doing your job, the pettiness of things shouldn't be a factor as much as many people might think of looking from the outside. When people say, well, did you hear those people booing, say in Philly or whatever, when you're hitting? No, you don't hear a thing. You don't hear any of that, because you're so locked into the job you're doing. And I think you want to talk about my speaking eventually, but speaking is another microcosm of life, as baseball is. And a lot of people don't like to speak, and a lot of people might similarly ask the question you asked about, is it nerve-wracking on the baseball field? Well, the thing that I believe as a speaker, as an athlete, or anybody in life, the key to not getting sucked into that cesspool of pressure is a thing that I call think outside, not a box. That's tired, old, and a box is nothing. My philosophy is think outside the self. So when you're speaking, if you're up there and, maybe in 7th grade speaking class, they told you to picture your audience in their underwear. Okay. What I say is you think outside yourself, and you think about the people that you're delivering that speech to, and they want you to succeed. They want to either laugh, they want to learn, they want to be inspired and motivated. Oh, at the ballpark, you think about the team. You think about contributing to the team, being aware of the situations that you're in. And you also, I think a little bit, you think about those fans that are pulling for you. And it's an awesome thing when fans are, you have a home team fan base like we had in New York, was great. And so you are thinking outside of yourself so much. If you're doing it in the way I believe you have to do it, then I don't think the pressures and the little things that can bother a lot of people, they don't bother the professional who is thinking about something besides themselves.
So also during that year, you met your wife. You were right. You were introduced by another player. So you came into the major leagues. You won a World Series, and you met your wife all in that same year. That's amazing.
It is, and it was, and it still is 32 years later. God had a plan for my life, I believe, and it included baseball. But as you know, and probably a lot of fans and people that might be listening or watching this broadcast know what happened to me. I basically, after that year, I was traded to the Royals to be starting catcher to take over the pitching staff of that young Royals, guys who had won just 2 years earlier for the Royals. And they wanted me, a younger catcher, to be with those guys for 6, 7, 8 years. And 3 weeks in the season, I'm done. I blew up my shoulder. And that was the beginning of the end for baseball. And I kind of went from that 86 great year of a world championship, meeting my wife, by the way, is a nurse, and to become later very important. And it was a fabulous year, but I kind of laugh about it a little bit today, and I've kind of coined the phrase, I went from the penthouse to the outhouse, and now back.
Awesome. So it was a great opportunity when you were traded. It's not like, oh my God, I just was traded from the Mets. You were traded. You didn't really, with Gary Carter in front of you, it was probably tough to get steady playing time.
Sure.
So now you're going to the Royals. You're going to be the starting catcher. Like you just said, you were injured, unfortunately, and you tried to come back after that.
Oh yeah, I battled hard. I mean, and that's another thing that I believe in another teaching moment. I think is in trying to come back there. I tell kids, mainly kids, but also adults, and just people in general. You never want to have to look in a mirror 3, 4, 5, 10 years later and say, if only I had done this, blank, or if only, because then that's with you the rest of your life. So, that's just, I gave it everything I had for 2.5 years, and it wasn't meant to be. As I mentioned earlier, there was a different plan for my life. It included baseball, which is a very important part of that plan. That was a part that gave me the ability on the comeback from the penthouse to the outhouse, and the back part of the back was my background in baseball. But I had a big valley to go through.
And we're going to talk about that now. So after baseball was done, you realized that wasn't going to work. You went into the insurance business. That was your next step?
Yeah, financial services business, and that really was not. That was a mistake. I was not cut out for that. But shortly into that, I was diagnosed with 3 very serious health problems, including end-stage renal failure, hypogammaglobulinemia, which is a deficiency of the gamma globulin production in your body, which helps you fight off infection and gives you energy. I had a rare type of sleep apnea, central nerve apnea, so I had to start sleeping with BiPAP. The hypogam required a $10,000 IV treatment once a month. And, less than a year and a half after fighting to come back, I was on dialysis and ultimately there, not too long after that, received my first of 3 kidney transplants, all less than 2 years after being out of the game. So that was just huge change. And in speaking today, I'm often asked to talk about change because we all face change. We all face proverbial curves in life. And that I did.
How mentally did you grasp all that and handle all that? And did you have support at home?
Oh, I certainly had support at home with my wife, of course, although she loved baseball. So she was disappointed that ended because she just loved baseball, and she was a Mets fan and she was a Rangers fan. But regardless, that's not what you're talking about. But she was very supportive. She was the best thing that could have happened to me there in the end of '86, even better than winning and being a part of that World Series team. I also had another strong part of my life, which was my faith, and that was a foundation that helped me to overcome what ultimately occurred. That was the most challenging part. Was after my first transplant there, 1.5 2 years after my career ended. I take 35 to 40 pills a day, and many of those are to keep the body from rejecting a transplant. And those meds have a lot of side effects, and different people are affected different ways. I can grow chest hairs 6 inches long. I mean, I was a hairy dude before, but now I can grow them all in the wrong place. I mean, that's just one of the side effects of these type medications, but there's many side effects, and 2 that I was impacted by greatly was mood swings and depression. And 1.5 years after my first transplant there in 2002, by the fall of the following year, I found myself in my basement with a loaded .357, and I was considering quitting. Fortunately, I had what you asked the question. What what helps you? What did you have to help get you through these things? Well, when you're that low in life, you need foundations. And I had a great family upbringing. I had a wonderfully supportive wife that I couldn't do that to her. That was a major impact in any decision. I don't think there was really a decision. I think I was being a wimp, but I ended up there. The third thing was my faith. I just knew, in the depths of my despair, chemically induced by the medications, that this isn't what God wanted me to do. It was not. My wife certainly wouldn't. My family would have been devastated. So by the time I put down that gun in the basement and walked up the 13 steps, I had already made a game plan to be proactive in 3 areas of my life. I had to get back to the basics of my faith. I realized that I had been just slipping away, and that foundation of my life wasn't helping me. So, but that was my fault because I wasn't involved in that, being proactive. Secondly was my wife and my family. A great foundation that I couldn't make a stupid move like that and just eliminate myself from the lives of others that loved me. And the third thing was I had been to a professional conference in the financial services business in Denver, Colorado, and I heard from and met and eventually became friends with one of the greatest motivational speakers of all time, Mr. Zig Ziglar. And he said, and I remembered this in the basement, and this was the final third thing that was so important in my comeback. He said, you can change where you're at in life by what you put into your mind. And I, in high school, I was a 3.96 GPA and fourth class of 600 and some, but I hated reading. I never read those big books. Cliff Notes got me through. But I became a reader, and I became a cassette listener. Everything from the Bible to Anthony Robbins to maybe even Buddha or whoever those people are. Anything positive I was filling my brain with. Like a computer, garbage in, garbage out, or good in, good out. And so with those three things, I began to move forward. And ironically, less than a week later, because I know you're going to ask me about the speaking, so I might as well just tell you. Less than a week later, a former Chiefs player, a friend of mine, called me, and he was in charge of getting speakers for the local Rotary Club. And he said, Ed, man, we had a meeting tomorrow, and the guy I had scheduled just called me and bailed. Can you come and just share your story? And he had no idea what was going on in my life, where I had just been. The day before, he called the day after I was in the basement. And I was not Superman yet, or never have been Superman, but I hadn't come back yet. But I had the foundation. And I said, Dave, I can't, I'm not feeling good physically. I've just had this transplant, blah, blah, blah. And Dave just kept twisting my arm. And I'm like, all right, Dave, I'll be there. So I go to this Rotary Club the next day and I used to talk a lot in the minor leagues to, kids groups and stuff. So, I was a speaker, but I could talk. And I went there and talked for 20 minutes, just told my story. And at the end of it, people were like, here I am 24 hours from the basement with a loaded 387 to people telling me that, wow, that was very touching, or I was inspired. And finally, the last person before Dave and I left was the president of the club, who handed me a business card, shook hands with me. He said, listen, Ed, that was fabulous. He said, for an old job, you tell a great story, and corporate America pays people like you to go out and share that with in corporate settings, associations, all kind of groups. And he said, if you'd like to, I'd love to sit down and tell you what I do. I book speakers into events. And I said, well, thank you, sir, but the timing's not good. And I didn't tell him where I was at 24 hours, but I took his card, and I never told Dave Lindstrom, the chief guy who took me there. I just went home. But I started to implement those three steps that I had decided on. And 6 months later, I called that fellow back, and we had lunch. And he said, most speakers become speakers, kind of like a hooker becomes a hooker. First you do it for a friend, then a friend of a friend, and then a friend of a friend's friend says, hey, how much will you pay me to do that for me or my people? And so literally that's what happened 23 years ago. And, today, 23 years ago, I've spoken all over the country. I was doing as many as 80 to 90 engagements a year. It's been a little slower now. I wrote my first book and only book in 95. in part because I was at a National Speakers Association conference, and I was sitting at lunch with Zig Ziglar, Earl Nightingale, and Jim Ryan, one of the other big superstars. And here I am, this rookie speaker guy, and they're like, "Oh, you used to play ball? I think I heard of you. Yeah, yeah. Oh, wow, that's an interesting story. Huh. So what's the name of your book?" That's like the 10-minute conversation. But down, and I was like, "Book? Me? I mean, I'm just Ed. I only got 2 letters of my name. I'm not a big name guy. What am I gonna?" They go, "Oh my gosh, you need to have a book just to." People, you can't speak to enough people. You can share your life and the lessons you've learned through this book that'll go beyond you. And then I got to thinking, and then I realized I had a 2-year-old son, and I may not be here when that kid's a teenager. And that was the main reason that I decided to write the book. It's called Conquering Life's Curves.
Yep,
Baseball battles, baseball battles and beyond, and it's autobiographical in nature with a lot of life's lessons learned through my journey from the penthouse to the outhouse and back. And when I wrote it, I felt like I didn't care about making money through any book or any of that. I cared about that my son would have something if I wasn't here, because that's how sick I was. I was very sick at different parts along the way here, and he had story. He had my life. He had my stories. He had all these nuggets. At the end of each chapter, even, I went to the point of making a 3 to 4 or 5 page section at the end of each chapter called the inside pitch, which really focused down on an attribute, a value that I could draw out of the book. For example, I have 3 years of minor league chapters. One of the inside pitches I know is called perseverance. It just fits right in. So, it's been a long journey. It's been interesting. I cannot say it's been easy, but life is not easy, as you know, and as your listeners and the folks who tune in to you know, because you're sharing good stories, and you're sharing stories to help people understand that they're not alone in how they feel, the things that they go through. And so you're thinking outside yourself, making a difference. And to me, that's kind of what life is about. And if you want to break it down just to the core, fundamental, total foundation, it's 4 letters, Ryan. It's LOVE. Thinking outside the self, that's just an offspring of what we were created to do, was to love one another.
It's amazing. It's amazing that you say that. I just talked to. I don't know if you've heard of Walter Bond. I talked to him on Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
And the main thing I took out of the conversation was just to help other people. He said he doesn't even like to think about himself. He just wants to help other people, and that's when good things happen to you, to anybody. And it's been the recurring theme on people I speak to. It's amazing.
Well, maybe there's something to that, isn't there?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I just believe that, especially in our generation today, our culture today, Ryan, we've become so I, me, selfie, promote thyself. It makes me sick. I struggle so bad, and I get depressed about it, actually. My speaking has dwindled in part because it started to dwindle when the finances crashed here about 2008, 2009, or whatever it was. But I haven't come back to speaking, 80, 90 times a year, because I was raised to let my bat do my talking for me. So I'm not a marketer, first of all. I don't like asking other people for things. Now, if somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, man, I've seen some good things here. I think you'd use a hand in this area, that area." I don't turn that down. Matter of fact, that's the way I like it to go. But as far as making fancy stuff and promoting and look at me and oh my goodness, and so you go to the other side of Walter Bond, myself, and you got these idiots that you saw at the NFL Super Bowl this year down there, celebrities making more money at these parties and this stuff away from the field, more money than the winners would make in their share. Just being social, promoting by doing stupid things, loudmouth, popping off type of things. But you know what? Unfortunately, that's where we're headed as a society. In 1999, I started a nonprofit called The Bottom of the Ninth, where character counts. And, you know, you hear different, the media, what can you believe today? But you hear some saying, we're at the cliff, we're right on the edge, we're about to lose it all. I say it's the bottom of the ninth. And it's time for us to step up the plate and make a character comeback. And that's it. And to me, the comeback of character starts with a four-letter word, love. And love is grounded in my world, in my faith, in what my Creator created me to be here for.
Awesome.
It's just the truth, Ryan.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
And I'm glad that you're spreading the truth, because I can't do it all. You know, the folks you have on this show can't do it all. And it takes, we're all gifted in different ways, Ryan. And maybe I have a story. I don't know you. I don't know. Maybe you got some good stories about painting. But, you know, maybe they're not as attractive as you being able to share the stories. This may be your gift. And so we're all gifted in these different ways. And that's what makes a team. And that's how we're going to come back. We're not going to come back because of Ed Hearn or Walter Bond. Maybe because of our Creator. And we get back to the basics of that. But otherwise, it's going to take all of us coming together, using our unique gifts to make that comeback. So keep swinging, man.
Thank you. How is your health now, today?
Don't ruin the interview.
Well, I want to make sure you're good.
You know, I'm doing okay. I mean, I'm a battler. And, you know, I've been through enough stuff now that you know, it's not going to be easy. It's, you know, things break down faster. You know, when you get older, I mean, I'm going to be 60 the end of this year. Oh, my goodness. But I'm an old 60. Just when you take 30 to 40 pills a day since 1992, that's almost 30 years. Yeah. I mean, that's going to mess your body up some way. So I struggle with stuff, but, you know, I wasn't feeling very good today before you called. And quite frankly, I considered asking you to reschedule. But you know what? I don't know that I've said this yet today, but doing things like this, speaking to a group, or getting a letter back about my book, that's the greatest pill I can take.
Well, you really, when you watch this back, if you watch this back, you can see when you're talking about helping other people, you brighten up. There you go, right there. So that's an awesome thing.
It's a good thing, man. I don't know how we can live without it. I think we're in a sad shape, and we're at each other's throats because we're thinking about ourselves too darn much. And I wish I had a bigger platform, but what we can do, you can do, and Walter can do, and others like us, is use our gifts and make a difference. And then it's up to him, ultimately.
Yes. Do you still follow baseball at all?
Oh, a little bit. Don't ask me to name the Mets players, but yeah.
Well, I have to ask, what do you think about the Astros situation?
Oh, you're ruining the interview now. Look, those guys have been Ryan. Those guys have been cheating since 1986.
Yes.
Somewhere in my basement, I swear I have a sleeve of Mike Scott scuffed baseballs. I can't find them. When I do, I think I could probably sell them for about $1,000 a piece. But I was a guy in Game 3 when we came back to New York, and he's pitching. And, of course, I'm on the bench because Carter's catching. And I know that, wait, they're throwing the balls off to the home dugout. Oh, I went over by the ball boy and started collecting those balls and looking. And about every third to 2 out of 4 balls when he was pitching came out with the exact same $50 size mark above the two seams where the president signs and all that stuff, right above that same spot, every ball marked the same way. And I took him to Keith Hernandez on the bench. He took him to Davey. We collected, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 dozen. We sent a couple dozen to the president's office. And much like today's baseball commissioner, not the president, I think they've done a pretty good job of sweeping this under the rug, in my opinion, for the severity of what's happened. They've dealt with some guys, a couple guys have taken a hit, but, now they're going to protect the Astros from getting hit. Well, if I'm a hitter and I know if I get hit, that guy's going to be on suspension. I mean, you're giving more benefit to the guys who started all this. Not that they're the only group that's doing it. But really, as we said in the beginning or early on, baseball is a microcosm of life. And, you can pick up the paper on the front page and see the same junk about people cheating, stealing, doing things they shouldn't be doing. Well, it's no different in baseball. People just like to focus on sports because guys are making multiple millions of dollars. And so the Astros, they've been cheating for a long time.
Well, it's going to be an interesting season, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, Ed, I really appreciate it. This was awesome. I mean, for me being a Mets fan, it's awesome just in that. But talking to you about everything else has been great. I really appreciate it.
Well, I enjoyed it, and look forward to. I will definitely review it, and if I can link it up for you or help you get it out there, you let me know.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Well, you keep doing your thing, brother. Keep swinging, man.
Thank you, sir. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.